Hi everybody, my name's Janine Tait and I'm the founder of Bestow Beauty, which is a wellness-based brand. We believe in treating the skin from the inside with nutritionally rich formulas. Now today we have a webinar on foods and environments that cause breakouts. Now if you have any questions during this webinar, please send them through on the chat. We've got the team there waiting to answer any queries you have. Now, before we dive into the subject, I just really wanted to recap some of the things we were introduced to in the last webinar. The most particularly skin sensitivity profiles. So this is something that you genetically inherit, so it doesn't change throughout your life, and it's the way your skin chooses to communicate with you if there's any problems. So if the body or the skin is experiencing any challenges, the skin will often give you a visible clue or message. And how it will do this will be dependent on your skin sensitivity profile. And there's 4 profiles, so let's look at what you are. The first one is heating skin. So this skin tends to go red. So that might just be it has a tendency to flush, or it could develop into a rash or irritation, or even further into a condition like rosacea or eczema or dermatitis. The next one is congesting skin. So congesting skin tends to block. So the skin can feel bumpy. You can get open and closed comedones, or what we call, or what is commonly called blackheads and whiteheads, or it could have a tendency towards breakouts. Then we have a combination skin. So this is both heating and congesting. So it will have a tendency to block and go red. Inflamed acne is a really good example of this skin type. And then lastly, we have a non-reactive skin. So this skin is neither heating nor congesting. So it tends not to tell you if there's any problems, and you have to be aware of listening to other signs within your body as to how you are going. So it could be your digestive system, or your sleep patterns, or your emotional well-being. But be aware that your skin is going to say nothing. It's going to carry on looking good regardless of what's going on inside. Now, it's usually pretty easy to figure out which one of these you are. It's based on what problems you tend to have with your skin, say in the past, or maybe what you're experiencing right now. The other thing that we talked about in the last webinar is you can have varying degrees of this. You can be mildly heating or very strongly heating, or you could be a combination. So I'm this skin type, a combination skin type. I'm very strongly heating, so rashes and redness will always appear when I'm not feeling my best, and I'm very mildly congesting. So I have to have a lot of congesting foods or be exposed to congesting environments, and then I'll get a little bit of congestion and it tends to clear up quite quickly. So I'm combination, strongly heating, very mildly congesting. So it's usually pretty easy to figure out which one you are. Now, we also talked at the last webinar about how you can use this knowledge, and there's 2 main ways. Just knowing your triggers is really important. So I know, for me, it doesn't mean I avoid all heating and congesting foods. It just, I know that I can't expose myself too much to them. And if I'm having problems right now, I avoid them altogether. So that's the other way you can use this knowledge. If you're experiencing issues with your skin right now that you want to heal, then avoiding these triggers is a really good start. So based on that, let's now look at congesting skin. So first of all, how does the skin block? So it's a blockage that occurs with the oil of our skin. So our skin produces oil, or more technically it's known as sebum, and this oil is secreted from sebaceous glands that are found around the top of our pores, or they're actually hair follicles. So we have these sebaceous glands, and they produce oil or sebum that comes out of the canal and onto the skin surface. And once there, it plays a really important role in keeping our skin looking healthy and beautiful. First of all, it does things like locks in moisture. So this layer of the skin is very dry, but it does require a certain level of moisture in order for it to be healthy and to look really good. And so that having that very fine film on the surface of the skin helps lock that moisture in. If you strip that away too much with over cleansing and over exfoliation, you can find that the skin dries out very quickly. Just think of whenever you've used a foaming cleanser or a soap and your skin can feel quite taut afterwards. That is a lack of water from the skin. So the skin has become very dehydrated, it becomes very inflexible because it has not got that beautiful layer on the surface of the skin anymore to lock the moisture in. So when we're cleansing, we want to do it very gently and then make sure we replace that film with our skincare products. So that's one job it does. Another job is it acts like a physical barrier between the harsh environment and our delicate skin cells. So it's just literally a barrier that buffers our skin from any damage from the environment. Another important role it plays is keeping our skin flexible and supple and smooth. And lastly, and most interestingly, I think, is we've discovered that the oils in our acid mantle, that's what we call that very fine film on the skin surface, are really important for maintaining the health and the environment that our helpful little microbes love to live in. So just like we have our gut microbiome and how important that is to our health, we have a skin microbiome as well. So we have all of these little ancient friends that have evolved over millennia to live on our surface of our skin, and they protect us. They protect us from disease and infection. They do all sorts of amazing things for us. They can eat skin cells, so that stops them blocking in our pores. We even now know that certain families of microbes on our skin are anti-aging, and having them there keeps our skin looking youthful. So we definitely want to look after these little guys, and one way we can do that is by ensuring that we've got good quality oil we're producing from our sebaceous glands, and that it's able to get up onto the surface of the skin, because once there it creates the environment that our little microbes love to live in, and it provides them with a food source. So as you can see, really key that we produce good quality sebum and that it gets up and out onto the skin surface. The problems occur when a little blockage forms. So we just need a little tiny blockage. Even the salts from perspiration can cause that initial blockage, and it's very small. But once it's there, the sebum can't get up and out onto the skin surface anymore. But the glands keep producing the oil, so that blockage builds up behind that tiny little blockage, and it gets bigger and bigger. Now at this stage, it is called what we term a microcomedone. So a blockage technically is called a comedone, and at this point it's just a microcomedone. So it's teeny tiny, you can't even see it with the visible eye, but it will continue to grow. And one of two things can happen with that blockage. It can either turn into an open comedone, or what we call a blackhead. Now what happens here is the opening of the pore gets stretched open with the blockage, and that sebum gets exposed to the oxygen in the air, and it oxidizes and goes black, and that's why you get the black color. And you can often see on the skin surface this little black circle blockage, and you can see the skin extended around it from being pushed out. So that is an open comedone. The other type of blockage we can get is a closed comedone. So you can see here that you get the opening squeezes shut, and that protects the sebum from being exposed to the air, so it stays that skin color. So all you get on the surface of the skin is a little flesh-colored bump, and this is called a closed comedone, or commonly referred to as a whitehead. So those are the two types of blockages you can get, and over the years I've noticed that some people can be more prone to one type of blockage than the other. So I would have clients that had a tendency to a lot of closed comedones, or vice versa, but you can definitely get a mix of those blockages as well. Now once formed, these little blockages can be hard to get rid of, which I'm sure most people have realized, trying to get rid of them. So the first most important thing is preventing them from occurring in the first place, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But once they're there, then the most important thing is to get rid of them. You can have extraction facials with your therapist to get rid of them. Eventually they can move through and disappear, but they'll often break out to form a pimple. So if you have your extraction facials, then it does mean that you can avoid the pain and the healing of having those pimples. But if you're going to have an extraction facial with your therapist, it's really important that you prepare your skin beforehand, and your therapist will talk to you about making sure that your skin is really hydrated and supple, and that'll make it much easier for them to be able to remove those blockages. If your skin is stripped and dehydrated and tight, then the skin really holds on to those blockages and it's virtually impossible to get rid of them. So it is important to prepare for that type of extraction facial. So those are the blockages. Let's look at how we can avoid getting them in the first place, and that is by being aware of what kind of foods and drinks and environments can create these problems. So the first and most common congesting food is anything that contains high levels of saturated fat. So if you think of saturated fat, and red meat contains a lot of saturated fat, and you can see it when you go and buy your steak, you'll see the white fat. It's solid at room temperature. Or it might be that you've made a mince dish and you've put it in the fridge, and you'll actually see the saturated fat form little hard white globules. Or maybe you've fried some sausages and you've left the pan on the stove, and when you've come back it's cooled down and you can see the hard white fat. You can imagine that foods that contain a lot of those saturated fats, if that then forms a high level of fats in your sebum or your skin's oil, it's going to make that sebum thicker and stickier and much more likely to block if you have a tendency towards congested skin. So if this is your skin type, we want to be aware of foods that contain high levels of saturated fats. Now, I'm sure you're all going to groan when you hear about this one, but cheese, everybody's favorite food, it contains high levels of saturated fat. So if you have a congesting skin, limit the amount of cheese you have, and if you're experiencing problems at the moment and you're trying to clear your skin, just avoid cheese altogether. Now, as I say, most people are very disappointed to hear this, so I've been asked many times by my clients, but which cheese is an okay cheese to have? And of course, I asked my mentor this question many times, and she would always say to me, Janine, if you're trying to clear the skin, no cheese is good cheese, so avoid all cheeses. However, if you haven't got congestion at the moment or you're not trying to clear your skin, you are better with the softer cheeses. So they are the lesser of the evils. So your feta, your cottage cheese is better than your harder cheeses like your cheddar, which have a higher saturated fat content. But as I say, no cheese is good cheese if you're trying to clear your skin, because it really is a very congesting food. The next one, to add more bad news, is chocolate. The good news about chocolate is it's not the cacao or the cocoa powder that is the problem. So if you love the chocolate and you need your chocolate fix, we have plenty of recipes in the Bestow Treats books that contain cacao powder, or you can use cocoa powder if you like, and you can get your chocolate fix, It is the fats in the chocolate that are the problem. So the cacao fat or cacao butter, I should say, or the fats that they use to make the chocolate. And this includes vegan fats as well, or vegan chocolate. So anything where it forms a bar or a little, chocolate, that is the problem. So just watch your chocolate. And your chocolate drinks can be an issue as well. They contain a lot of milk powders, which can be congesting, but it tends to be a finer congestion. So if you're having a lot of your chocolate drink powders and you get a very fine bumping of the skin, that will be what that is. Full fat dairy. So if you're going to have dairy, you're better with full fat normally. It's kinder on your blood sugar levels, whereas your low fat, there's no fat to counteract the glucose increase in your blood. But when it comes to congested skin, your full fat dairies you have to be careful of because they contain those saturated fats. So things like cream or really high-fat yogurts like your Greek yogurt, just be cautious of those. They can contain those fats that are going to block your skin. Red meat, as we discussed before, if you have congested skin and you're trying to clear it, keep your red meat to once a week, and that includes pork, which is a very fatty meat. And just avoid and go for your leaner cuts, like your nice steaks, rather than the mince and sausages where the fat's actually ground up into that product and you can't really remove it. Chicken nibbles are another one. So there's always the fat found under the chicken skin. So if you're having lots of nibbles, you're eating lots of chicken skin, we've found that that can cause a problem with congesting skins too. Then, of course, there's the foods that the saturated fat is not the problem. What we find is a lot of processed protein powders, people can be sensitive to them. So if you've started having a protein powder and you've started to break out with your skin or get blockages, it could be the protein powder that's causing the problem, especially if they're whey-based. Fried food and takeaways, these can be high in saturated fats, but even if they're not, a lot of the fats that they contain can be damaged or processed, and they can cause a problem with congesting. Commercial mayonnaises, same thing. They can contain those very processed fats to give it that thick kind of texture that we want out of our mayonnaises. So if you have congested skin, you're better to make a nice quick French dressing or make your own mayonnaise or aioli where you know what kind of oils are in it. Peanuts and cashews can be another problem for congested skins. They're certainly irritating for heating skins as well. Also avoid your peanut butter and your cashew butter, but other nuts and other nut butters are just fine. So those are the main congesting foods and drinks that you just have to be aware of, can be triggers for a congesting skin. Let's now look at congesting lifestyle factors. So the number one is comedogenic ingredients, or environments. So things that are found in skincare products or makeup that can block the pores from the outside, or environments, say like a car mechanic who's working with engine oils, that can be very comedogenic, and often they can find that they start having problems on their backs or areas where those oils can come into contact with their skin. Now, the good news is if you are getting advice from a beauty therapist about your makeup or your skincare products, then there's a very low chance that they contain anything comedogenic. Our reputable brands are very aware of what ingredients are comedogenic these days, and they avoid them because the last thing they want to be doing is giving clients problems. So you're pretty safe if you're getting a recommendation from your beauty therapist. The next lifestyle factor is perspiration, and what the problem is here is the little salts that are found in perspiration. So they're enough to cause a blockage when they dry and cause that microcomedone, and then that microcomedone progresses to form an open or a closed comedone. So when you perspire, the best thing, and it's usually when you've done an exercise, a workout or something where you perspire a lot, you're best to rinse your skin with water afterwards, because perspiration is water soluble. You don't have to cleanse. Just rinsing with water will rinse all the salts away and then replace your protection with your skincare products. Now, if that isn't possible for any reason, then the barest minimum would be drying the skin off with a towel. So you can even take a towel for your workout and make sure that you're drying off as many of those salts as you can. But as I say, the gold standard is actually rinsing your skin after exercise and making sure that all that salt has gone, because it really can cause quite a problem. And one thing that I've noticed is people that walk or run with caps on and then leave their cap on afterwards, they can get quite a little band of blockages there where the cap locks those salts into the skin. The last one is over cleansing or exfoliation. So whenever the skin becomes dry and tight and dehydrated, then what can happen is that little pore, the canal of the pore, can constrict and make it much more likely for that little microcomedone to occur in the first place. So we want to keep the skin supple, and we want to keep that canal open at its normal diameter. So anything that causes a dehydration or a drying or a tightening of the skin can make it more likely that your skin will block. So if you're over cleansing and stripping the skin, that causes dehydration, or over exfoliating, same difference. You are stripping away that protective film, and then the water loss can be quite incredible after that. So if you have been over cleansing your skin or over exfoliating and it's feeling dry and tight, a little bit taut, and you're experiencing blockages, something like the Bestow the Graces bathing routine to put that moisture back into the skin, then the Graces soothing serum and soothing oil will pretty quickly correct it. So it's really important that we keep our skin supple, and that will stop that physical blockage occurring in the first place. So those are the main lifestyle factors. We've covered the dietary factors. The last thing I want to talk about is nutritional deficiencies, because these can also cause blockages. So one of the major nutritional deficiencies is a lack of certain fats in our diet. So if we aren't getting certain fats in our diet, and therefore our sebum is deficient in them, they've found it makes our sebum very dry and sticky, and straight away that is going to cause a blockage. So it's really important that we get those good fats in our diet, and so having something like your Bestow Beauty Plus oil will guarantee that you are not deficient in these fats, and that won't be a contributing factor to your blockages. The other thing that can cause a problem is the B vitamins. So if you're deficient in certain B vitamins, it can stop the oil getting up and out onto the skin surface. So of course in New Zealand we have the Bestow Beauty from Beneath, and this has the perfect balance of B vitamins for the skin. So with those two products, you'll make sure that nutritional deficiencies are not contributing to the problem. Now in Australia we do not have this product available, so if you are listening from Australia and you want to know what B vitamins you should be having, please email us on admin@janinetait.co.nz, and we will let you know the B vitamin which I just can't remember off the top of my head, so I'll have to find out for you which B vitamin it is that we found was the closest to the balance of Bs in this particular product. So that is the nutritional deficiencies that can be contributing. So if you've addressed the nutritional deficiencies and you're not having the congesting foods and you're not exposing your skin to the nutritional lifestyle factors that cause congestion, then that is I will guarantee the blockages will stop forming. But what you can find is it can be quite difficult to get rid of existing blockages. So that's when you need to see your therapist for a more structured program. Some lucky people, just doing this is enough to clear everything. So hopefully you're one of those people. So hopefully that has helped you understand the triggers for congesting skin and help you avoid them in the future. In the next webinar, we're going to be talking about the 6 essential nutrients that you need for healthy, beautiful skin. So hopefully I will see you there. Thank you for attending this lecture today. See you.